Good evening. Welcome to the July 21st edition of the Downers Grove Village Council meeting. As is our tradition, please join us and say the Pledge of Allegiance to start our meeting.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Megan, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Earl? Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit?
Here.
Commissioner Colavini?
Here.
Commissioner Gray?
Here.
Mayor Burnett?
Here. We're missing Commissioner Earl tonight, and we hope she has an enjoyable evening. We'll see her next time. During the COVID-19 pandemic, public comment is also taken electronically. This has been our practice now for several months. To submit a comment, please click on the Submit Public Comment section on the link at this week's meeting page of the village website. So if you go to downers.us, the lower left-hand corner is this week's meetings. There is a place there where you can submit public comment. As with previous council meetings here in council chambers, copies of the agenda are available on either side of the room on the shelves. But for those watching at home and following the links, you'll actually have a little better view because you'll see all the documents that we see in sort of real time. That takes us to item 3 on our agenda tonight. We have a proclamation this evening. Throughout the history of Downers Grove, regular citizens from every generation have stepped forth to exhibit extensive leadership, share their talents, and volunteer their time to help preserve and improve our community. Dr. Floyd Meisner is such an individual. There are a lot of words which can be used to describe Dr. Meisner: father, Marine, doctor, entrepreneur, innovator, businessman, professional, volunteer, philanthropist, Good Samaritan, Citizen of the Year, leader, and since 1932, resident of Downers Grove. So this evening, it's right we take a moment to recognize Dr. Meisner and his efforts, and as a thank you for his commitment and dedication to our community, we have a proclamation to issue. Whereas Dr. Floyd Meisner is being presented with the Downers Grove Historical Society's Montrose Dunham Award for 2020, established in 2019 to honor those who have served and made significant contributions to Downers Grove. And whereas Dr. Meisner moved with his family to the Downers Grove area in 1932 when he was 7 years old, and will celebrate his 95th birthday on July 30th, spending nearly 3/4 of a century as a Downers Grove resident. Whereas he graduated from high school in 1944, joined the Marines, returned and married his wife Shirley in 1948, and raised their 3 children in Downers Grove. And whereas after graduating as Doctor of Optometry in 1949, he established his optometry practice in Downers Grove, occupying several sites over the years as his practice grew. And whereas he became a pillar of his community for his work with the Lions Club, his advocating for vision screening in schools, and as part of the requirements for obtaining a driver's license, he helped build Good Samaritan Hospital and the YMCA. And whereas some of his accomplishments include the 2005 Lifetime Achievement Award from the College of Optometry, the 1988 Good Samaritan of the Year Award from Good Samaritan Hospital, the 1988 Downers Grove Citizen of the Year Award, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Downers Grove Chamber of Commerce in 2015. Now therefore I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim the week of July 19th through 25th as Dr. Floyd Meisner Week in the Village of Downers Grove, and congratulate Dr. Meisner on all his accomplishments. Dated this 21st day of July 2020, Downers Grove, Illinois. Congratulations, Dr. Meisner.
Holding this, would that be all right? All right. Very nice. Thank you, Liz. One more. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Please.
Thank you very much, Council, for this wonderful proclamation for Dr. Meisner. Should I take this off? Or let's just leave it? Oh, we'll just leave it on. Okay. I really can't go too much further from what you've already stated in the proclamation. There will be much more to hear about Dr. Meisner this Saturday. We will be having a special celebration for him this Saturday. It's starting at 10 o'clock at the Downers Grove Museum campus. And it will be outside. There'll be a large tent, shade, lots of social distancing. We do ask that participants wear their masks. There'll be slight light refreshments. And we will spend some time thanking Dr. Meisner for his many contributions to the village of Downers Grove and to, of course, the field of optometry in general. And we hope those who are listening this evening, if you wish to attend, please go to our website, www.downersgrovehistory.org, or you can go to Eventbrite and just put in Montreux Dunham Award and it'll come right up. There's so much to say about this wonderful person, and you'll hear a lot about it this Saturday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liz. With that, we are moving on to item 4, minutes of previous council meetings. Is there a motion concerning previous minutes?
Mayor Barnett, I move that the council adopt the minutes as presented.
Second.
Any council comments, questions concerning those minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. This takes us to item 5 on our agenda tonight. This is public comments section of our meeting. This is for public to comment, share their thoughts, ask questions on items not on tonight's agenda. So if there's anyone here that would like to bring something up or tell us about an event, come on out. David, come on down.
I hope to have a handout, but I'm unable to print right now because of COVID issues. So I apologize for that, but hopefully they'll get that sorted out for you. And I think I won't go too much. I'll try to stay close to 5 minutes. Last year I started directly challenging the council's failure to live up to its purported primary goal of environmental sustainability. In so doing, among other observations, I asserted that the way of life in Downers Grove, in Illinois, and in the U.S. were not environmentally sustainable. I presume most members of the council viewed this assertion as eccentric ranting and believed the claim was easily and aptly ignored in favor of more important and pressing matters. Permit me to say I told you so. While a virus was one of many possible triggers, I will admit that my lack of knowledge about viruses prevented me from proposing this virus would be the factor triggering onset of the demise of our unsustainable system. But now that COVID-19 is amongst us, wreaking social and economic havoc, it's easy to recognize it as the missing piece of the puzzle. In making this assertion, I refer to the fact that 7 decades of recent history suggest the assorted critiques of our not living environmentally sustainably have been too amorphous to affect much change in human behavior. An extremely transmissible infectious virus that humans can spread asymptomatically, which can kill us not only quickly but also tortuously and expensively gradually, and which, even if it doesn't kill us, can leave us with serious long-term health issues, most notably in cognitive functioning, is another matter entirely. In spite of repeated warnings from scientists to prepare for a virus hitting the rich nations of the world, we didn't. Since we were unprepared, the only viable option we had to slow the virus spread was to stop almost all normal economic activity and reduce to the maximum extent possible all forms of in-person social interaction, to shelter in place, aka quarantine. The problem is the less strict and or more delayed the effort to quarantine, the greater the opportunity we give the virus to spread. As is now obvious, that's what happened and is happening in the U.S. Even after the virus came to the U.S., most of the early guidance from political leaders, especially the president, implied COVID-19 was to be a short to medium-term challenge that we humans would overcome just as we have all other obstacles on our way to conquering the planet. Once we win this so-called war against an invisible enemy, hope currently rests on having a vaccine and or medicines by sometime next year, we will be able to get back to the usual conquering business, our relentless pursuit of economic growth. If that's what you think lies ahead, I would argue you have another thing coming. The global economy was already heading into recession before the novel coronavirus found its way around the world. Trying to slow the spread of the virus quickly amplified that downturn into an earth-shattering decline rivaling in its depth, at least here in the U.S., that of the Great Depression. While many in the U.S. were shocked by both the contraction and its suddenness, the virus struck at a moment and in a way that exposed its badly mistaken claims the U.S. economy and financial system were sound and secure. The U.S. is a particularly fertile place for this hoax virus to take root and spread. Why do I say this? Because beyond the breathtakingly ignorant and mean-spirited leadership in the White House, we are a country with a strong and enduring strain of anti-intellectualism, a stunted sense of nationwide cultural community, in recent decades, an intensifying political polarization between people holding diametrically opposing, specifically zero-sum versus non-zero-sum worldviews. That is, an understanding that life is best lived as either a selfishly, even ruthlessly competitive, or a benignly competitive, even selflessly cooperative endeavor. And finally, a tolerance for inequality, legitimated on grounds of promoting individual motivation that accepted without resistance that the rewards of economic activity go disproportionately to the decreasingly few while the burdens go disproportionately to the increasingly many. Perhaps the most unfortunate consequence of these theories was the globalization of economic activity that left the U.S. and the world lacking resilience, a deficiency the virus has exposed to deadly effect. Resilience not just in terms of medical supplies, but more importantly, resilience in terms of citizens' social, physical, mental, and financial well-being, which will undoubtedly take years to address, presuming the nation chooses to do so. Not surprisingly, then, given the decentralized, indeed fragmented nature of American society and government, and the predisposition of government to act only when it can wait no longer, even after the virus arrived, the federal government and most of the states of the U.S. did little to take the public health measures required to detect the virus and minimize it and track its spread. Indeed, when for the last 4 decades the Republican Party has held as a core tenet that government is the problem and individual behavior in the marketplace is the solution, they're taking action against that grain is fraught with political peril. So the nation adopted by default the president and his party's preferred neocon approach to let the virus course through the population or at best somewhat impeded, in hopes that those it kills will be mostly the infirm, the expendable, the easily replaceable, and the opposition party supporters. Are we all in this together? To those with a zero-sum worldview, no, never. For everyone else, kinda, sorta. Is wearing a mask a political issue? In the U.S., you better believe it. Is trust in globalization of economic activity evaporating? Are presumptions of shared economic fate being reevaluated? Absolutely. If only lies, put-downs, glib generalities, baseless assertions, mixed messages, and hyperbolical hyperbole could make the virus disappear. If only they could make our environmentally unsustainable way of life sustainable. They don't, so we, individually and collectively, need to think, plan, and act accordingly. If we are wise, we will see the virus as a signal to take the goal of environmental sustainability seriously. We are not going back to the pre-virus normal, nor should we want to. Making our way of life environmentally sustainable will require much more than simply wearing a mask, washing our hands, maintaining social distance, and getting vaccinated. Which is to say, however difficult you find these measures to be now, please interpret dealing with the current pandemic as preparation for the challenges that lie ahead. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to bring to our attention this evening? It's not on tonight's agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll continue on to the consent agenda this evening.
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the consent agenda items A, B, C, and E as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments concerning the consent agenda? As modified, excluding item D. Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. Moves us to our active agenda. I assume then, Greg, that we have an active agenda tonight?
Yeah, I apologize, Mayor. I had asked earlier that the item D be removed from the consent agenda so that I could make a comment on it.
Is there a motion concerning the J. Congdon Sewer Service Water Main Improvements Contract B item?
Mayor Barnett, I move to award $1,426,526.25 to J. Congdon Sewer Service Incorporated for the 2020 Water Main Improvements Contract B as presented.
Second.
Council comments or questions? Greg, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, I applaud that we're moving forward with awarding a contract for water main replacement. I have been a strong supporter of infrastructure investment in our community, and I continue to be. I have some concern with regard to J. Congdon Sewer simply because the packet, I've done some research since making the request, and I've found that I could be in error to a certain degree in what I'm about to say, so I'm going to qualify it. The company, as far as I can tell, is not a union company. I grew up in a family of union plumbers and pipe fitters. I've got 3 generations of union plumbers in my family. I happen to represent Plumbers Local 130, which covers the 17-county Northeast Illinois area. Up until about last month, it was the largest straight-line plumbing local in the country. It appears they may be signatory with the Chicago Laborers District Council, and if they are, then I apologize for thinking that they were not a signatory company, but I have confirmed that they are not with Local 130. I believe in union labor. I believe you get a better product. I believe you get a better service from a union company, and that's why I do what I do, and that's why my family has done what they've done for 3 generations. So I'm going to vote against this. If there's anybody out there from the Chicago District Council of Laborers that can demonstrate to me that I am incorrect, I will apologize directly to them. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Greg. Any other comments or questions on this item? Let me just say, like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, towards the end of the meeting when Kavanaugh had some issues to bring up, I hope that nobody up here ever feels the need to apologize for making sure that their issues and the things that are important to them are known. That's why there's an odd number of us, so we can continue to move forward even when we don't agree. And it's why we're up here to represent our entire community. So we will undoubtedly have divergent views on a variety of subjects as we go along. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Megan, would you please call the roll on this item?
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Colavini?
Aye.
Commissioner Gray?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit?
Nay.
Commissioner Jose?
Nay.
Mayor Burnett?
Aye. The motion passes, help me with the math.
4-2.
4-2, thank you. Should have been keeping track. That is the only active agenda item we have that was moved from the consent agenda. That takes us to our first reading. We have first reading items periodically. These are items we do not plan to take action on this evening. They are here only for discussion, and so with that, Mr. Baker.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. There's one item on the first agenda, and I'll be delivering the presentation for that item this evening. It involves the proposed establishment of Special Service Area Number 11, otherwise known as the new Downtown Special Service Area. Let me begin by providing a little bit of background. This item tonight is actually an implementation item of a broader plan that the Village Council accepted in December of 2019, known as the Future of Downtown Plan. It's a council priority action item established in 2019, and prior to that involved work with the Downtown Management Corporation in a coordinated effort for several years. The specific issue that this plan is intending to deal with is the fact that the tax increment financing district in the downtown, the special service area that's currently in place, and the agreement with the Downtown Management Corporation all expire at the end of this year. The debt for downtown improvements will be retired at the same time. However, upon expiration, there will be ongoing expenses and insufficient revenues to support them. Hence the reason for the establishment of this new special service area. When this process is completed, it will result in detailed level plans and actions that specifically relate to infrastructure maintenance, services, and operations to be provided, roles and responsibilities between the village and the Downtown Management Corporation, and funding sources and amounts. And of course, here tonight, we are talking about one of those funding sources. So let me talk a little more specifically about the attributes of this special service area. It's shown to and draws boundaries around commercial properties within the downtown, exempting condominium and townhouse properties. Just for those who are unfamiliar, an SSA or special service area generates additional property tax revenue above a typical tax bill and provides that revenue to fund specific activities within the geographic boundaries of the special service area. So that's what you're looking at on the map here, are those geographic boundaries showing the condominium and townhouse properties exempted. The ordinance calls for a maximum rate in the special service area of 1% of the assessed value of property. It's scheduled to expire after 10 years, and it is intended to fund Downtown Management Corporation operations, as well as beautification efforts that will be coordinated between the village and the Downtown Management Corporation. Even though we're talking about the beginning of the process that establishes this SSA, the revenue associated with it will not begin to be collected until fiscal year 2022. This slide includes the process for adopting the special service area beginning tonight with item number 1. It's an extensive process that follows the state statute requirements for adopting a special service area that includes a public hearing, notice to all property owners and voters within the special service area, and then ultimately adoption by the council after a period of time is allowed for any objections to be filed. So that timeline is laid out here on the slide. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Council comments or questions on this first reading item? Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank staff, in particular Mike Baker, for all of the work that's gone into this. This has been, about a 2.5 year project. As we saw the end of the TIF district and the end of the SSA coming. Obviously, there's a lot that goes on in our downtown, a lot of events. A lot more folks live in our downtown than they used to. And it really is the beating heart of our community. And it's so vitally important that we continue to be good stewards of it. And this is a key component. And it took a lot of work, a lot of creativity, a lot of negotiations back and forth with the business owners, the residents, and the Downtown Management Corporation. And we're going to start seeing the benefits of it very soon. And I'm excited to vote for it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Rich?
Yeah, I'd like to add my comments. I'll be speaking about this a little bit later. Downtown is just so vital to us, and it could use a fresh up in some areas, so I think it's well worth the investment. Thank you, staff, for the hard work, all the public meetings, getting the input, letting people know in advance what was going on, which I think helped them really buy into this. So, yeah, let's keep going forward.
Are there any comments from the audience or questions from the audience on this item? Okay, well, I'll just sort of close up here with mentioning that, as Greg said, our downtown is in many ways the heartbeat of our community, and as Rich mentioned, it's time to do a little freshening up and moving forward. I'd encourage all residents, not just those in the downtown or business owners in the downtown, to spend a little time with these documents that we'll make available online over the next several months. It is an interesting and I think often misunderstood process by which we fund many of the things that people see and enjoy downtown. So take a little time to familiarize yourself with this. It's unique, but it's also really important. So we've done a lot of work, as Greg mentioned, and Mike has done an exceptional job of getting us to this point. I don't expect a lot of controversy going forward. We've sort of had that already. But it's good for our community as a whole to understand how things happen and why they happen downtown. So please take a few minutes with that. That ends our first reading tonight. Mike, I guess I want to check, did we get any electronic questions on that subject?
We didn't as of about 15 minutes ago. I will check again, but I don't believe we have any.
Okay.
No additional comments, Mayor.
All right, thank you. That takes us to item 9, the manager's report. Do we have a manager in the house?
We have no manager's report this evening, Mayor.
Okay. Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one item tonight to present, and that is an ordinance proposing the establishment of Special Service Area Number 11. It will be on the August 4th active agenda. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11 on tonight's agenda is council member new business. We have periodically situations that come up that come from council members, so they want to introduce a new subject for all of us. And with that, Mr. Cullivaney, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Village Council direct staff to work with the Architectural Design Review Board to review, evaluate, and recommend amendments to the Downtown Design Guidelines and Downtown Pattern Book. Also consider amending the review and approval process for certain construction projects in the downtown and at catalyst sites to require review by the Architectural Design Review Board.
Second.
Thank you. Rich, you want to continue to introduce a little bit before we get into questions?
Yeah, this is a project that I and a friend have been working on for 3 years now, and a lot of it had to do with certain things that happened in downtown. So I want to frame this pretty quickly on what the issues are, what questions were we asked by the study that we did, what should we avoid, and what characteristics of a high-quality downtown are, and the recommendations that we've come up with. This actually started from citizens being pretty upset about the development, the Trammell Crow development that went in on Main and Maple, and it was really based on a few things. People felt that they weren't being listened to, they did not have visibility into the project early on, and by the time the project came before the public, it was pretty much a fait accompli. We actually met with Johnny Carlson, who was the project manager for that, and one of the concerns was that it was just too much bulk, too much vertical scope on Main Street. And we asked, could you have entertained another setback so it wouldn't be so imposing on Main Street? And the answer was that would have been a whole lot easier to entertain very early in the project. However, we have 6 months of engineering and planning into this project and $115,000 in plans. So at this time, no, we really have to stick with what we're doing. It's the feeling that developers want to enter into a marketplace where they're welcome by the residents and by the community. Right now, we actually have very little that the staff or even the village council can do to encourage a developer to establish developments in accordance with the downtown design guidelines. And why this is so important is the buildings that we put in now and in the next 5 to 10 years will actually dictate what our downtown looks like for the next 50, perhaps even 100 years. I believe that we need an attractive downtown, and we need that to attract diners, shoppers, new residents, and new businesses to Downers Grove. So the questions that were raised is how do we do this with durable and high-quality materials? How do we ensure that buildings are actually complementary and enhanced as opposed to detracting from the surrounding areas? And furthermore, should the downtown design guidelines be looked at and updated? Should the downtown pattern book, which was done in 2008, also be updated? How do we balance community expectations for downtown and catalyst sites with the property owners' property rights? How do you protect and enhance the quality and character of downtown and the catalyst sites? And how do you give the staff and village council more tools to request positive changes without impeding the development process? So what we did is we actually visited some 5 communities: Glenview, Wheaton, Glen Ellen, Park Ridge. We talked to Elmhurst, and then we also visited, I visited Barrington. And what we found is Barrington has an interesting and balanced approach that I think is most closely aligned with what I'm proposing here. And they have an architectural review permission. It also does historic preservation. And they look at any commercial or multifamily developments that are scheduled for downtown, and they give input to the developer very early on in the process before the developers have to invest a lot of money. There's also things to avoid in here. You want to avoid projects that have a negative impact on town. We want to avoid a scenario where we've not given proper input and buy-in by the community early on. We also want to make sure that the changes that are requested by staff and the village council actually have some teeth. And one thing we want to avoid is dictating architectural styles and those kinds of details. And the reason for that is we have a very eclectic downtown. So Downers Grove does not have a single architectural style, and that's not what I'm proposing here. However, other communities come up with really high-quality buildings. This is a picture I took several months of downtown Lisle in a development they put in. And I'll let you draw your own conclusions. I happen to prefer the one on the right. The one on the left, by the way, did very well in the marketplace. It filled up very quickly. It sold for some $44 million, so I think they could have invested a little bit more time and architectural detail into this thing and still be affordable for them. Some characteristics of downtown is it establishes a sense of place. It supports the character of a downtown, and unlike developments in like big box stores and shopping centers, they develop over time. The downtown is multifunctional. People shop there, they work there, they go to church there. It should be pedestrian friendly. It should encourage people to gather and congregate. I think we've seen that with our on-street dining, where people are just spending more time in downtown and being more enjoyable. And we want to promote human activity and create a high sense of community ownership. What is the best way to ensure high-quality design and construction standards? How do you best provide and maintain good suburban design to complement surrounding buildings and to actually enhance existing property values, and to build upon our small town village aspects of Downers Grove in the downtown core? Benefits of a high-quality downtown: first of all, it encourages economic development. Good businesses are attracted to good downtowns. This would establish a streamlined review and approval process that wouldn't slow us up much at all. It also sets the guidelines for the community in advance, and it provides clear direction for the developers up front, so they can see even before they're considering development in Downers Grove, they know that there is an early review process and that a chance to show people that there's a wonderful development going in. And then also it allows us to set our standards, which we have in the downtown design guidelines, and put some teeth into those. These are some pictures. The one on the left happened to be from Planning Magazine. The one on the right I took one night in Main Street, Naperville, some 7 miles from there. So downtown design can have a difference. So the recommendations here is that we direct the staff to work out plans to have perhaps the Architectural Review Board evaluate and make recommendations to the Village Council on the downtown design guidelines, the downtown pattern book, and review preliminary plans for plan developments in the downtown business district and catalyst sites to ensure substantial compliance with the downtown design guidelines, and then issue certificates of approval if that's approved. This ends my presentation.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from council? Leslie?
Yeah, I appreciate all the work you've put on this. I think this is a really nice start. One thing I would just add is I'd like to make sure we kind of think about environmental sustainability, knowing that, again, these buildings are going to be here for the next 50 to 100 years, and thinking about things like recycled materials, renewables, and also, I know it was in the slide that you kind of went through quickly with shade trees and benches, but ensuring that we have adequate green spaces as well.
Right.
Thank you. Nicole?
I just want to thank Commissioner Colavini for bringing this forward tonight. It's not often that when a council member brings up new business that we also get such a thorough PowerPoint with all of that information involved. So that was wonderful. This has been something that I think has been kind of swirling around, and Commissioner Colavini made mention of it, for the past several years. And so I'm really excited that this is coming forward. I love that ADRB would play a role in this. And we do need to remain competitive, especially when you think of the times that we are in now. It's important that we remain competitive with other suburbs in terms of shops, dining, environmental sustainability, green space, all of those things. So there were lots of good questions that you posed, lots of information presented, so I'm excited to see what staff comes up with here. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. One of the phrases that Commissioner Colavini used I thought was particularly important to me, and it was clear direction up front. I think it's important that whatever the product is at the end of the day gives folks in the business community who are looking to invest in our downtown and our community at large an idea, a very strong idea of what it is we're looking for, so that at the end of the day, there isn't the delay that could come from it. And I'm hoping that we can get quite a bit of traction out of maybe sequencing the meetings to make sure that it doesn't take too long to get from the ADRB to the Plan Commission and to us. Along the way, I like the idea of updating the pattern book and the design guidelines. I think that could be a key component, and really understanding the full extent to which we can already use staff and the village council tools that are available to enforce it, and then what the additional steps are that we can gain as a benefit from this additional process. So I think there's a lot to be learned here, and a lot that we can put into place to ensure that we continue to get the Downers Grove we're looking for. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Greg. Kavanaugh?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to first thank Commissioner Cullivaney for helping. This was an item I think I came in on somewhere kind of midway or somewhere in the process, but for you taking the time to spell this out for me as I'm coming into something new. As the other commissioners have said, there's an opportunity here from a sustainability perspective. When you look at what the city of Chicago has tried to do over the past few years in making itself the #1 relocation workplace in the country, it's interesting that over the last 5 months, we are starting to reverse that. Companies that were focused on downtown and needing to be in the city have now started to reverse course and are looking at the suburbs, including the western suburbs, as homes now because of the times that we live in. And so when we talk about these issues, the look, the feel, we're talking about our identity, we're talking about our brand as a village, and I think what we're talking about doing does set the stage for many, many years to come and creates a desirable place that people want to live, work, and play. So thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kavanaugh. I'm excited to see what this takes us. The question, the fundamental question about asking our staff in ADRB to look at our process and our pattern book makes all the sense in the world to me. One of the things we've got now is since 2008, is we've got a series of experiences, some good and some bad. And so asking the question about the process and whether or not there's adjustments that can be made there to offer improvements to the community is a worthwhile endeavor. I'm looking forward to the answers. The things that remain important to me are an efficient process and a process that's welcoming and predictable. I think that's entirely doable with almost any set of circumstances. We just have to be thoughtful and mindful of those things. What we do want to continue to do is be appealing as a place for the next person to decide to make their home or their business or their investment. We are in a competitive market, as Nicole was saying, and so those are really important things. But I'm sure we can get there, and I'm looking forward to what the ADRB and our staff come back with, because improvement is continuous around here, and I bet we can make some. So thanks for bringing it forward, Rich.
Thank you.
Any other council comments? Okay, Megan, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Cullivaney?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Gray?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Mayor Barnett?
Aye. That passes unanimously. Thanks again, Rich. All right, and with that, we are off to council member reports. Are there any council member reports this evening? Let's start with Commissioner Gray.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to, I was writing down some notes here and just looking at the past 5 months that our village, our state, the country, and the world has tried to navigate just this new place that we're living in. And one of the things that has struck me has been the question that I feel like we've all heard as we try to make sense out of everything, and that is, how can I help? And we've seen this in so many different ways of people kind of stepping up in different forms. And so one of the things that I've seen has been people in terms of how they've contributed to making sure that residents who've lost their jobs or have no way to really provide for their families have stepped out in certain ways. And so we've seen that through some of the food pantries, some of the many great food pantries that are here in our area. Just last week, a resident that wanted to see, we understand that transportation is one of those key dominoes that if it falls apart for a family of limited means, whether it be public transportation or their own transportation, that could be the difference between a job and not having a job. And so a resident actually donated a car to be given away to someone who really needed it. And so seeing that was fantastic. And so lastly, a resident contacted me this past week and wants to donate $1,000 to a local Downers Grove nonprofit. And so what I'm asking the community to do, and I'll be asking my fellow commissioners, would be if you know of some, if you work with some hand-to-hand, please email me at cgray@downers.us, and I'll be getting information so we can try to find a home for that money within our community. But this is really just to celebrate the individuals that live in our neighborhoods, that want to see us do better, that want to help, and are answering the question, how can I help? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Kavanaugh. Greg?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Rich?
No additional report.
Leslie?
Just please continue to wear your mask and social distance. We do not want to go backwards like our neighbors in Chicago. And that's it.
Thank you. Nicole?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm going to break the stride here. I had a few comments that I wanted to just make sure we got into the record and make sure it got out into the public, and so I took a few minutes to write them down, so bear with me. The most recent update from the DuPage County Health Department, which came yesterday, we learned that we have eclipsed 10,000 positive COVID-19 cases in DuPage County. 10,000. Back on June 23rd, the county had its lowest 7-day rolling average of new cases of 33. That number has now doubled. It's over 65 new cases per day on average across the county. Since the state's Phase 4 reopening plan went into effect in early July, both new cases and new hospitalizations in total number have turned downward in terms of age, which is a significant piece of information, with a lot of increase in that coming between the ages of 20 and 29. Here in Downers Grove, we've had 325 cases as of yesterday, up from 266 just before the Phase 4 reopening, or a 22% increase in less than a month. We are a long ways from out of the woods here, and there's a very real risk that the Illinois Department of Public Health will reverse course and move various rules back a stage or more. As Leslie mentioned, and you may know, Chicago is rolling back some rules effective this upcoming weekend. I'm not really interested in an online debate about whether this is a right or left issue, whether this has to do with presidential politics or not. We've got to do better, and I know we can, and the 3 W's are what matter. Wear your mask, wash your hands, watch your distance. Those are real, and they're helpful, irrespective of your politics. So here's another thing I want to ask you to ask yourself. Are you building or reducing risk with your decisions? If you drive 100 miles an hour, there's some risk. If you do so without a seatbelt, there's a little more risk. If you do so in traffic in an old car with drum brakes and no airbags, the risk is even greater. Do this several times a day, every day, and the odds will likely work against you. So yeah, that's kind of a ridiculous example. I'm sure some people are saying, well, come on, Barnett. But here's the thing. With a highly communicable disease for which there is no vaccine, every time you leave the house, you add risk. So please stop and think about whether you're building or reducing risk. Everyone wants to be able to live as close to normal as possible, but every time we choose to add risk, we are choosing to add risk not only for ourselves, but for others. Every trip to the grocery store, every stop for coffee, every library pickup, every kid's sports event or doctor visit or trip to the lake house, every one of those increases the risk that our businesses will once again be shuttered, that our restaurants will go back to outdoor dining or takeout only, or that kids' activities that we're now finally enjoying will come to a screeching halt. Please don't misunderstand me. I've got a house full of teenagers. I understand the challenges many of us face daily, and I'm not asking you all to just shut everything down. But I am asking that you slow down, that you put on your mask, that you wash your hands, that you watch your distance, but that you also look for ways to reduce risk. Have 4 friends over, not 14. Go out to dinner a little less frequently. Say no a few more times than you say yes over the course of a week. Please make a conscious choice to acknowledge that this is not normal. Things are not okay. I know we can do better. I know we can make progress. But we're going to have to want to do it better for each other, not just for ourselves. So please think and look for opportunities to reduce risk. With that, Mike, did you have any additional comments that have come in?
No additional comments, Mayor.
Fantastic, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.